and it's being recorded. Okay, we're good to go. Sorry, thank you for showing up. This, I think, should be a quick little webinar about the microgrant program, which is sort of new, but sort of not. It's taking what we've done before and just tweaking it a little to, I hope, make things a little bit more flexible and accessible. Okay, so here we go. Library Services and Technology Grant Microgrant webinar. I'm Sue Lynn Jones. I'm the LSTA coordinator here at the State Library. Okay, next slide. Okay, so here's our agenda. First, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the LSTA program and our 2018 allotment. And then we'll talk about microgrants, what we are doing now in the 2017-18 year, and the next year, 18-19, so the differences. Talk about a little bit about our last plan evaluation findings, and then go over the eligibility and allowable costs. Any questions? Nope. Okay. So first off, how are LSTA funds used in Nevada? So if you don't already know, LSTA is the Library Services and Technology Act. It is a grant program run by IMLS, and it's a grants to states program. So all of the state library agencies get a grant from IMLS. It's all population based. It's based on a formula. So we just get this money, and we get this so that we can advance library services in our state. And in Nevada, we use it to help libraries solidify their roles as community educational centers through planning, assessment, training, partnerships, capacity building, and identifying user access needs. Carol can't see the slides? Crap. Can you all see the slides? Oi, okay, let's see. What can you see? All right, can you see that? Oh, you guys are so patient. Thank you. All right, so we'll just go up. I don't think you missed anything. This is what I said before, the agenda. This is where we are now. Suzanne asked if it applies to academic libraries. Yes, so these microgrants, we'll be getting to that. It applies to all eligible libraries. If you are an academic library and you meet the LSTA eligibility requirements, you can apply. Okay. All right, so in Nevada, LSTA funds supports statewide initiatives. These are things that we do at the state library that benefit everyone, and that's, you know, talking books, rural bookmobiles, right, that sort of thing. And we also do subgrants, and we have competitive subgrants, which are up to $100,000. We have mini subgrants, which are up to $10,000, and there are more restrictions placed on those. And now we have these microgrants, which are up to $3,000 at a pop, you know, so, but they're a lot more flexible, and we're talking about microgrants today. Okay, so now we'll move on. If you have any questions about LSTA in Nevada, this is new to you, you can email me and I can send you a link to more info, right? Okay. So the good news is LSTA, since it's a federal grant program, it has to be reauthorized by Congress every single year. There's been a little bit of, you know, concern that we may not be funded because the president's budget had us at zero, but Congress did fund us. The president just signed that funding bill, so we are funded for 2018. There was an actual increase in what we got. So you can see last year we got $1.76 million, and this year we got about $50,000 more. So that's good. We don't have that money in our hands yet, but we have been notified that we will be receiving it hopefully soon. What we don't know yet is how we are going to distribute it. We're still working on that. We know for sure, I know for sure that I am setting aside money for microgrants, but I can't tell you positively for sure how much that'll be. It will be hopefully at least what we've done before, which is about $70,000 for everybody. We will try for at least that much. So don't worry about that. The good news is that we have money, right? Any questions about that? No? Okay. Okay, so now we're going to talk about microgrants. And this is a new thing, brand new, created out of thin air this year. We have microgrants for pretty much, there's 4 different buckets. There's lifelong learning, there's microgrants for technology, for institutional improvement, and for continuing ed. And they're in 2 categories because they're 2 different applications. The continuing ed microgrant application is a whole separate thing because we ask different things, we have different scopes, we have different intents. So there's one application for those 3 categories and then one application for continuing ed. Does that make sense? I'm cutting in and out. Oh boy. All right, what do you think you might have missed? Just that microgrants are up to 3, no, I haven't gotten there yet. Lifelong and technology. Okay, we have 3 buckets, and we have four funding category, we have 4 funding priorities for these microgrants. One is lifelong learning, and that's sort of your summer reading program type thing. Next is for technology, and this is just to fund technology that you might need that improves services for you, your staff, your community. It also might fund the EDGE initiative. And then institutional improvement, which is sort of everything else. And we'll get into that a little bit more. And then we also have a continuing education microgrant, and that is to fund your continuing education needs. Okay. No. If you do summer reading, you would put it in lifelong learning, but this is for any kind of lifelong learning for anybody, right? I mean, libraries are pretty much in the business of lifelong learning. It depends on who your target audience is and who your stakeholders are and what kind of strategic plan you have. Right? If you want to do lifelong learning for senior citizens, if you want to do technological literacy, if you want to do digital literacy, early literacy, underserved populations, any of that, that's all lifelong learning. Okay. So here is I think this is why I'm actually doing this webinar, because it's a new program and it's slightly different from 2017, but it's probably just different enough from this current year that we're in and what we're doing to give you pause and have you ask questions. So here's a nice little chart. In 2017, we have community enrichment grants. And that's kind of what it sounds like. It's lifelong learning, and it's only for lifelong learning. It's only for things that are to enrich your communities. And it was only for Nevada LSTA Goal 3. It was only for the IMLS Intent Lifelong Learning. For these microgrants, I'm cutting out again. All right, I'm not sure how to fix the cutting out part. I can speak maybe more slowly. Anyway, I'll speak louder. How's that? For 2018, we've expanded it. So instead of focusing solely on Nevada LSTA Goal 3, your projects can focus on any of our 4 goals. And that's because we don't have a preference. All of our LSTA goals are created equal. We don't prefer one over the other, so we decided not to make you prefer one over the other. Any LSTA goal that you would want to address through your project, you can. Any IMLS goal that you would like, intent that you would like to address through your project, you can. Not just, one. So we're trying to be more flexible. Currently in 2017, we only have 2 funding periods, Cycle 1 of Community Enrichment and Cycle 2. and those have very specific deadlines, specific start and end dates. If you missed, any of the application deadlines, you were unfortunately out of luck and you couldn't participate. So for this year in 18, this coming year, we're making everything flexible. Flexible funding periods, so you get to choose your own funding period. If you would like it to be from February to May, you can totally do that. Rolling deadlines, so the deadlines are not set, they're based on your project start date. So we're building in some more flexibility into all of this. Currently in 17, you can do a Cycle 1 community enrichment and a Cycle 2. You can have 2 simultaneous projects. I personally found this to be a little bit confusing, especially for reporting and reimbursements. So to clean it up, I've scaled that back. You can do 1 project at a time. So if your project goes from September to December, that's 1 project. Then you can have a January through May project. So that's a little bit more restrictive. Currently in 17, it's only for public and school libraries. For 2018, it's for any library in Nevada that meets the LSTA eligibility requirements, and those are coming up a few slides further on. 17, this is I think the biggest change. CE grants, which we did travel to training, if you're familiar with that, and scholarships, if you are familiar with that. Those are made to individuals. Individuals applied. If you're an individual, you had to register with the state as a vendor. You had to front all the money yourself, pay for your plane ticket, your registration, all of that out of pocket yourself. So in talking to people, I realized that that's actually a really big burden. It's and it's something that I've been trying to figure out how to fix. And we decided the best way to do that is to make these grants to the libraries. So the amount of paperwork will probably be the same, but the biggest benefit is that your library will pay for this, and then your library will be reimbursed, not you as an individual. And then in 17, these little tiny grants, these community enrichment grants, didn't require a match. And in 18, they do, but it's not as horrible as it sounds. The reason I'm asking for a match is because I want to better document match. It seems that looking at your reports, most often libraries are able to do match. You just have match. Your friends help, you have volunteers, you have locals donating things. So match is there, and I just want to capture it and be able to report it to IMLS. It shows that federal dollars and local dollars are combining to be, bigger than individual parts. So it's just a better way for me to document. But if you do not have match, we will not hold that against you. It's not a big thing. You just sign a waiver, and that will be totally fine. Okay? Does that make sense? Any questions? We're going to go into these a little bit more in detail now. Okay, we'll move on. Okay, so the reason I made these little changes for 2018 is based on our 5-year plan evaluation. And our evaluator said, for the most part, the state library is doing things well with LSTA, but there are some barriers to participation, and those barriers involve timing, which is the application and the project timeframe, and it also involves funding, getting smaller libraries to participate. And I hope the changes in the whole application schedule with the rolling deadlines and the more flexibility will address this timing issue. Funding match is a barrier, so that is why we have a match waiver. Not being able to have match will not discount you from getting a grant. But by doing these things, we hope really to reach more people. And by opening up from just public to everybody, we hope to get more people to participate. I know sometimes school libraries aren't able to do these things because our funding cycles are just completely contrary to school. school schedules. So all of that, I hope, will make your lives a little bit easier. And we're still deadline driven. We still have paperwork, but it's a little more flexible. Okay. Any questions? Nope. Alrighty. Next slide. So this is the Lifelong Learning MicroGrant. It's meant to support lifelong learning, any kind of lifelong learning. Here are some examples. We talked about that a little bit about 5 minutes ago. Reading programs, diversity programs, skills building programs, language learning events, civic engagement, productive aging. That was a great term that I found. Cultural competencies, anything that you want to do to keep your community on that, lifelong learning loop. New to this, so this is like summer reading program, as I said. This is the sole focus of our current community enrichment grants, and it's just been called lifelong learning now. New is that we are strongly encouraging you for this coming year to include a collection component in your little grants. And some of you do anyway, but this just calls it out. You are totally allowed to include a collection component to support whatever learning activities your project is trying to achieve, right? It's good. We want you to buy collections to supplement and complement your programs. You have any questions about lifelong learning? All right, moving on. So here's a new category for microgrants, and it is technology. For projects that focus on improving technology to meet the needs of library users and staff and/or provide accessibility. So examples are charging stations, software licenses, web design services. So if you maybe would like to hire an outside service to help you update your website, or maybe do a redesign or do an accessibility evaluation, that's technology. Early literacy stations, those awesome After School Edge and early literacy stations, that could either be lifelong learning or technology, however you want to frame it. Wi-Fi hotspots, this is not something I know a lot about, but I know that a lot of libraries and state libraries are using LSTA to encourage this sort of thing. So if that's something you want to do, I can find experts to help you figure that out. Henderson is also doing Wi-Fi hotspots. They're not using LSTA, but Henderson, if you want to do that, could probably help you figure that out. Here, if you think you need technology help, but you're not sure exactly what you need, you can use this grant to fund a subscription to the EDGE initiative, which it's a program to help you assess your current technology resources and plan for future needs. Okay, any questions about technology? Nope. All right, moving on. Institutional improvement is our last bucket, and it's pretty much anything else. If your project doesn't fall into lifelong learning or technology, it most likely will fall into institutional improvement. Here are some examples. If you have backup documentation, like you have a collection development plan and you want to improve your collections or you want to evaluate, this is the catch-all. This is for everything else that doesn't fit into lifelong learning technology, I hope. I learned about the Aspen Institute's action guide for re-envisioning your public library at ARSL. I skimmed it really quickly. It's a great resource. So this can help you figure out your institutional improvement plans, I think. And there's also a facilitator's guide. It's a really good product, and we recommend that you look at it if you're going to apply for this little microgrant. And that's it for the 3 microgrant buckets. Any questions? Nope, all makes sense? Okay, good. Then our final bucket is continuing ed. And this again is, like I said, this used to be travel to training. This current year we tried something new. We tried scholarships because we wanted the travel to training process to be a little simpler. It's a really paperwork intensive thing where you have to, sign this and sign that and verify this and give all sorts of outcomes. And we tried to simplify it by turning it into scholarships. And I don't know if we succeeded because it was still very paperwork intensive. And it took a while for you guys who did take advantage of it to get reimbursed. So again, like I said, this is the reason we decided to make it a library grant rather than an individual grant. Pretty much you submit one grant per activity. So if 3 of you want to go to NLA, you can put it all on one CE grant. Okay. All right. Any questions about that? Nope. Okay. All right. Here we get to the budget details. You can have up to $3,000 per project for those first 3 categories: lifelong learning, technology, and institutional improvement. And up to $5,000 per library jurisdiction per year. So you can have up to $5,000 over $3,000 for one grant, $5,000 for 2 or 3 grants, right? Continuing ed is a separate bucket of money, and that's $1,500 per person. And that $1,500 per person does not count against your $5,000 per library. It's a separate bucket. Right? So if you have 2 people using the continuing ed, that's $3,000. That does not count at all towards the lifelong learning, technology, or institutional improvement grants. Okay. Because these are federal funds, things are, allowable and things are not allowable. And these are some of the things that are not allowable per federal per federal guidelines. There's a whole list at that link right there that will tell you what you can and cannot buy with federal money. And if you do need to buy some of these things, you can use that towards your match. Like food and drink, if you're doing summer reading program, that's an excellent match item. Is the 5,000, is that, yes, it's our federal fiscal year 18, which in Nevada, we run from July 1st to June 30th. Okay. Again, this is the match, 10% match is required, but that's mainly so I can really more easily and clearly document match. It's not sort of a random, oh, yeah, we don't have to do match, so we won't report it, even though we have tons of match. If you don't have match, submit a waiver, it's all good. Okay. Reporting. So again, one project at a time. You start one, you end one, and then you can start another. The deadlines are 2 months prior to your project start date. So if you want to start a program July 1st, I would have to have your application by May 1st. So that's why we're doing this webinar now, to give you about a month to get going in time to start July 1st. Your final report, there's only one report for these things. Your final report is due 30 days after your project end date. So in the application, you're going to say when your project starts, when your project ends. Your project start date will drive the application deadline, and your project end date will drive when the final report is due. You can't start spending money until your project start date, and you can't spend money after your project end date. If you do, that can be used towards match. And then for all of these things, we would need all your reimbursement requests have to be in by July 20th of 2019. Okay. So reporting, I think, maybe is a little bit simpler. There's only one report to do, and that's your final. For a refresher, here are Nevada's 4 LSTA goals for the next 5 years for 2018-2022. They're the same goals as the last plan. So if you are super familiar with the last plan, nothing has changed. These are still our goals. Okay, I cut out on when you can start spending money. You can start spending money based on your project start date. So if you say you want your project to start July 1st and you get approval, that's the first day you are allowed to incur expenses. If you incur expenses before your project start date that you have put on your application, then those would have to be paid locally, and these can be used for, those would have to be paid locally. Does that make sense? And it's the same thing for the end date. Whatever you put as your end date, that's the last day you can have project expenditures. Okay, here are the IMLS goals. These are the focal areas. You can see there's 6, not just 1, not just the lifelong learning, which we were focused on this year. You can choose any of those that you'd like. All right, here are the eligibility requirements. In order to apply for this grant, you have to meet all of these conditions. So supported by local revenues by more than 50%, 51%, or are a nonprofit. You have an accessible collection. Information Nevada is just resource sharing, ILLs. You agree to lend books to other libraries and participate in ILLs. Any questions about that? Okay, so here are some additional eligibility requirements. If you're a public library, you have to meet the minimum standards for public libraries. If you're a school library, your school district must employ at least 1 certified library media specialist. Academic libraries must be accredited by the Northwest Commission on Colleges and Universities. If you're a consortia, I think we only have 1 consortia, but it has to fall within those guidelines. And if you're a nonprofit library-related organization, be tax exempt and be on file with the Nevada Secretary of State. And wow, that's it. That's all I got. That was I hope, a quick overview of the microgrants. I don't think it's too different. Well, it is a little bit different. But anyway, this is my contact info. There's my email, my phone number, our website, and then all of these documents, including this PowerPoint slide deck and the recording, will be posted on the LibGuide. The LibGuide is divided into sections. There's Apply, which is the only thing that's live now, and then Manage. So once you have your grant, then you'll go to Manage, and all the Manage documents will be there, including all your reimbursement forms. And then Guidance, IMLS Guidance is also up there too. It's its own separate tab. And the application is on this LibGuide. It's under Apply. And it's a PDF. It's a fillable PDF. Are there copies on the LibGuide of examples of prior winning grants? I have them, but they're not on the LibGuide. They're on a different guide, so I will put a link to those up there. And actually, they're not, they're only the competitive and mini grants that I have posted. The smaller ones like this, they just get lumped under, they just get sort of all lumped together as community enrichment grants, so I don't have those up. But I'll still put the link so you can see what we funded. All right, everybody. Thank you for your patience. I was a little bit stressed out because it wasn't working, but I think it's okay. Any questions at all? The recording will be posted on the LibGuide. So as soon as I stop the recording, I'm going to convert it and post it to YouTube, and then I'll post the YouTube link on the LibGuide. So I hope either by the end of the day, today, or tomorrow. All right. All right. Thank you guys for showing up. Send me questions if you have them. All right. Bye.